Hi everybody, how you doing? It's Rev'd Paul here from this week's Message from the Truck, or in this case, message pretty close to the truck. You know how they say you learn something new every day? Well, apparently today I learned that if you leave your phone sitting on the dash of your truck to record a message from the truck, the phone overheats, even with the air conditioning on, and it shuts itself down. So apparently, through the joys of Windsor summers, you're going to have a message from close to the truck instead of a message from the truck. But we're close enough. We can make it work. Welcome this afternoon as we share a little bit of a story, a little bit of announcement, and a little bit of a reminder of what's coming up for this week. Thank you, before I forget, to everyone who joined us on Wednesday. What a great load of fun we had with Jonathan at the keyboard as we shared in a virtual hymn sing, a Zoom hymn sing, all request. It was a great night. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. I think everybody seemed to enjoy themselves. There was lots of real joy in listening to Jonathan as he shared his music. So thank you to Jonathan, and thank you to all of you for sharing as part of that all request hymn sing on on Wednesday. This coming Sunday, tomorrow, we of course have worship at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Has been our pattern since back in the middle of March. We will be on Facebook Live. We will be there at 10 o'clock. All four of the rectors from this particular group of people that have been gathering from St. James, from All Saints, and from St. Andrews in Harrow and Christchurch in Colchester, as well as all of my parish family from St. Augustine of Canterbury. Looking forward to seeing you all at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. After church tomorrow, we have our outreach ministry, our drive-through food drive, part 4.0. This is the fourth time we've gathered food for the Unemployed Help Center. We've had all kinds of great success, and I'm looking for another great day tomorrow as we share with our help from some of our friends, such as the Royal Canadian Air Cadets, who loan us their trailer each time we gather for this, as well as all of our friends at the Unemployed Help Center, as we offer a little bit of our bounty to those who are in need, as we offer some of our good for those who are struggling with a little bit of challenge right now. So bring your non-perishables, bring your monetary donations to All Saints at noon, from noon until 1, St. Augustine's from 1:30 until 2:30, or if you don't make it to either of those, come on out and join us at St. James from 3 o'clock until 4 o'clock as we take both our food and monetary donations for the Unemployed Help Center. Certainly looking forward to seeing if we can beat our record of what we've been able to gather thus far. It's been a bit of a challenging week this week. I know on Monday we heard the unfortunate news that we're going to be at least a few more months before we gather in our church buildings again. Our continued journey through all of these challenges means that your rectors are coming up with new and creative ways to be community, and we're also looking to all of you, all of the members of the congregation, to give us ideas. What would you like to do to share in community? Would you like to do a Bible study? Would you like to do a book study? Would you like to just get together for coffee via some sort of social media platform? Any of those things that you might want to do, we're certainly willing to give it a try. So feel free to drop us a line or give us a quick call and let us know what your idea might be. And let's see what we can do with it as we continue down this journey until at least September, separated from our buildings. Continue as the church exclusively deployed. Not that we won't be deployed once we get back to our buildings, but for now, we are most definitely deployed. We've had some other things happen this week. We had the experience of what's been going on in the United States with the protests and demonstrations that have been happening surrounding the death of George Floyd. And we've seen those demonstrations and those protests even pop up in our own communities, whether it's here in Windsor or in Toronto or Kitchener-Waterloo or wherever else you might happen to be from. It's been a challenge for some of us to watch those things and to consider that some folks are seen as lesser people in the eyes of the world, knowing that they are not seen any less in the eyes of God. We know that Jesus told us to love our neighbor, whether our neighbor looked like us or sounded like us or spoke the same language as us or whatever it was. God just said, love your neighbor. It's amazing how a simple response like that, what it could save in the challenges that face so many places of the world, not just what's going on in the United States right now, but racism and systemic racism throughout all kinds of different places. Love your neighbor. Don't just say it, do it. Don't just promote it, be it. But that's a bit of a challenge. How do you love your neighbor when you don't know your neighbor? How do you love your neighbor if you don't knock on a door and say hello or introduce yourself? Or maybe you're concerned that you might offend somebody by saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing. Well, the best way to solve that problem is to ask questions and say, how do you do, or why do you do, or where do you do? And I would invite you to try that out in your own way this coming week. This week I also had an opportunity. It was a little bit of a different situation. I had Aaron and I, a number of weeks ago, took down a mulberry tree here at St. James, and that was something that they wanted us to do. It's not that we just decided to cut down a tree at St. James. No, there's this mulberry tree, and it was encroaching, and it needed to be dealt with, so they asked if we would take it down, and Aaron and I said, sure, why not? Gives us something to do for an evening. So we chopped, and we hacked, and we sawed, and we cut, and we maybe said words that weren't necessarily good words, but we got it out. We got ourselves down to this little tree stump. This little tree stump's about 2.5 feet wide with all of its root system and everything else, and it was very clear as we were taking down this particular tree that we weren't dealing with a tree. We were dealing with a number of trees that were all sort of gathered together. You know what? Instead of just explaining it all, why don't we go for a walk? I've got an idea. We're going to go on a field trip. So, as Aaron and I were digging out this tree, we realized that there was more than just one tree that was jammed in amongst this stump. And as we got to it, we realized that this was a very, very different set of roots than what we were used to from other trees that we've pulled out, because, that's the kind of thing Aaron and I like to do. But we got to this tree. I'm just going to flip my camera over here. 1 second. Nope, the camera's not going to flip over. Let's see. All right, we're going to have to do this a different way. Let's see if we can do it this way. What do you say? So, we got this tree out and realized as we got it out that there were all kinds of different root systems going on. There were these really strange looking orange roots, and there were these dried out brown roots, and there's some darker ones down here. And very quickly you can realize when you look at it, there are all kinds of different trees going on in the midst of all of this. Interestingly, all of these tree branches and all of these different roots were supporting one another, whether they looked like each other, whether they grew the same leaves as each other, whether they grew the same fruit as each other. It really didn't matter. They were just always intertwined with one another, always holding each other up, always making sure that there was a strength, there was a piece of them that was holding each other. I think in the midst of what's happened this week, we can take a lesson from this tree. We can take a lesson from this tree that says it's not just about one. Think about the strength that gets together when we hold one another up, when we support one another, when we feed one another, whether that's physically or spiritually, when we care for one another. And then think about all of the joy that came from all of those things working together for the birds that lived in those branches, for the mulberries that the squirrels and the birds and all the other critters ate, for all the joy that came from the work that was done by trees that didn't look like one another, that weren't from the same place, that were planted there from different places, but all grew to be together. That's sort of where we are at. We can support one another, we can care for one another, we can strengthen one another, we can all be working together for the benefit of all of the people. So, do that this week. Get to know your neighbor, love your neighbor, be a disciple, get out there and be the one who is sharing the good news. Get out there and be the one who can't wait to tell the story. And who knows what tomorrow will bring. But in the meantime, like this root that I was just talking about, care for one another, watch out for one another, strengthen one another, support one another, and be community for one another. For this week's message, from a little bit further away from the truck than I was when I started, keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down. Blessings to you all. Bye for now.